Welcome to the Hustle Wing podcast. Hustle Wing is the leading marketplace for side gigs. Today, I'd like to welcome Cyrus Kazi, CEO of Quantibly. Cyrus, thank you so much for making the time to be with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Perry.
Yeah, it's absolutely awesome. I see there's a lot of knowledge in that room behind you, and there's a lot of knowledge, I think, in that brain. So I'm really excited to chat with you. But I want to start with, what is your company, Quantibly? What is it?
Quantibly is a platform and a framework, and it is a data platform, and the framework is the impact framework. As you know, VCs, corporations, everyone is talking about impact these days, but how do you measure it? How do you quantify it? How do you know that your dollars are actually making an impact? Quantibly puts all that data together and shows you whether your dollars are making an impact or not. So it's evidence-based, data-based, and also industry standards, if you will. That's what Quantibly does.
I love this. Our listeners, they won't know, but you and I, in the beginning of this, we were talking about legacy and impact in regard to the next generation and kids. And I'm excited to talk about Quantibly's story, and we're going to get to more of it in a second. But I love talking to you so far because I know that the impact is not just this accounting dollars and cents, which we'll talk about how Quantibly does that for some of these NPOs. But I know that impact seems like it's a bigger thing to you, and there's impact through the organization, probably in company culture. I would just guess, just so far, in knowing a little bit about you. We'll talk about the company and the culture and stuff in a second, but I think that's what I'm so interested in, is that you see impact not just in terms of the finance and the accounting and all that, but there's a deeper piece, and I hope we can touch on that. But can you give us an elevator pitch for Quantibly, and just in one sentence, what what that looks like?
Absolutely. Quantibly is the first platform in the world to operationalize impact data collection, analysis, and reporting. That's what Quantibly does. And right now we are focused on the global not-for-profit and NGO and CSRs and philanthropies, but we are going into the for-profit world, if you will.
Very cool. So how are you guys making that transition into for-profit? Is there any verticals you are targeting to start with, or are you just kind of letting things lead you?
A little of both. We are going to, there's a lot of conversation about ESG, and everyone knows that the ESG as it stands is broken. It's whitewash, it's greenwash. No one actually believes the stories that ESG reports put out. But it doesn't have to be that way. There are actual standards that we can follow and make that verifiable. So we are going to target potentially the financial market. Many 86% of publicly traded companies are required to publish their impact report. The entire EU is mandating impact reports. So there's a lot of opportunity here for-profit companies to have standard impact framework to see if their dollars or their investments and their portfolio is generating the social, environmental, economic impact. And they can see it in real time. So it's not the end of the year exercise for shareholders. It can be done in real time. So that's where we are going. And we're also kind of looking at the trends in the market, see, because the impact analysis is actually a really big school of thought. So the processes, methodologies, and all of this is changing on a daily basis. So we're trying to make sure that we are guided by the market, but also making sure that our product actually does what it's supposed to do, not what it is cool to do, if you will. Doing the right thing, if you will.
So I assume that ESG stands for something energy related. I apologize, I don't know the what the acronym is, but what does ESG stand for? And then I have a follow-up question.
ESG is the environmental, social, and governance. So until recently, ESG has been made political and all of it. But the fact of the matter is, world's largest company like BlackRock and Larry Fink going on New York Times and saying, we have, as BlackRock, have an environmental, social, and governance responsibility to make sure that our shareholders, our portfolio companies achieve not just the bottom line, but something more value creation as opposed to profit creation. And that's a phenomenal response, right? That's an incredible paradigm shift in the sector. That if I'm buying into a coal company, what is the environmental offset of that coal company, if you will, right? So Previously, ESG was just a nice to have, but now more and more companies are looking at the holistic way to invest in social, economic, and environmental areas.
And that leads me actually to my second question, which is, as carbon credits, right, these carbon offset credits become an ever interesting play where they're like, they need to be offset, and you can buy these forests and these deforestation programs and all of these different things, are like, there must be such a slew of opportunity within that space as new, as the United States. I think there's only a couple states, as far as I last recall, which was a year ago, that, because I was like, maybe I should do a carbon offset startup to help people track and monitor these, these particular credits. But there wasn't a lot of states enforcing it. There were only a handful, and now it's like all the time more countries and more states are starting to, like you were saying, not look at these as nice to haves but need to haves. There must be fun challenges and opportunities in both of that as things start to expand.
Um, so, philosophically, I have issues with carbon credit and carbon footprint. But many people probably don't know carbon footprint and the carbon credit. All these terminologies were coined by BP, oil companies. Um, but it's less to do with carbon credit, permission to pollute, if you will, and more to do with what can I do for responsible consumption. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm not going to eat meat, or I'm not going to, turn on my 95,000 BTU air conditioner. What does the responsible consumption look like, right? And of course, the standards are not going to meet the developed world and the emerging countries and the underdeveloped world. So carbon credit that developed economies can afford disproportionately affects the underdeveloped world, right? So does Quantibly address carbon credit at this time? No, we do not, because that is a very, I should say, this is a complicated and very political calculation, if you will. However, in our product roadmap in the future, we do want to create a B2C application for every individual to have their own, responsible consumption, if you will. That could be food, energy, driving, school, books that you buy, whatever that might be. And it would depend how you want to do it. There is no singular way you can, quote unquote, reduce your carbon footprint, right? So that's what we are looking at. Again, it's farther down the road product roadmap, but right now we are focused on more on the institutional impact measurement, especially from the nonprofit NGO sector, because they're actually the forefront of social and environmental impact, not the corporations. So that's what we're trying to target.
That is a perfect segue into this next piece that I want to touch on. Everything you just said was super interesting, and I see a ton of opportunity in that future B2C product. And that's kind of like where my mind was at a year ago. Is like, how can someone, commit to keeping the trees in their yard, or doing something, subscribing to a certain lifestyle to X, Y, and Z. However, what you touched on was great, kind of what the current focus is. And where I want to go next is our audience here. There's tens of thousands of people that they're side hustlers, contract workers that will be listening and viewing this. What projects does Quantibly currently have going on where you guys could plug and play some of these folks from our community, some of these product designers, some of these salespeople, marketing people, partnership people? Where can they help you guys?
That's a great question. So let me address it by saying the following. While Quantibly's focus is the nonprofit NGO sector, everyone, you, me, all 75,000 plus people who are listening, they all have a connection to nonprofits and NGOs at some point or the other. They may not know it, but they do. The local daycare center, or local schools, or local not-for-profit, gardening on the sidewalk, or the food pantries, and the churches and the mosques and the synagogues, they're all providing critical social services. And any responsible person can at that point, if they're involved in it, would want to ask, is this organization or is this effort actually generating the impact? And that's where Quantibly comes in. So as far as side hustles are kind of concerned, we are actively working with fundraising professionals, grant writers, digital marketers who are focused on in the nonprofit world, accountants and budget directors, anyone who is trying to advance the not-for-profit world, and making sure that, hey, can we reward you for being this data-driven, evidence-based platform, being part of this platform? And that's what we're doing. We have a partnership program, we have an affiliate program. If you are actively grant writing or fundraising or doing accounting work or any other work, anything related to the nonprofit NGO world, anywhere in the world, talk to us, come to us, and we have a revenue sharing partnership. We'll make sure that your nonprofits adopt to our standards of data collection and impact measurement so that your work means something and we all both make some money in the process.
So I think the other thing was, it's funny, I laugh because tomorrow I'm going to the local food bank here, which is something I've recently started doing. So someone like me, I could go there and maybe refer them to you as a client, and maybe there's a rev share opportunity there. What about people that are partnership experts? So people that are, maybe they have they're one to many NGOs that they have relationships with that they could defer to you. Do you guys have a partnerships, like a larger program?
Absolutely. That's the institutional partner program. So let's say you're an individual consultant and you have a portfolio of not-for-profits, or you're working with different types, different sizes of organizations in whatever capacity. Come talk to us. We will figure out how to help those organizations sanitize their data, operationalize their impact. I know these are buzzwords, but literally, if you're in this sector, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. And in the process, we can support their data operations so that your work with them is also more effective and beneficial financially and otherwise.
Last question. For any salespeople that are listening, would there be an opportunity, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here, so all good if you need to think about this for a second, but would there be an opportunity for salespeople listening for just a commission-based thing where if they brought in, it's kind of like the partnerships program, but if they are able to bring in such and such client, there's a rev share thing of, of whatever that opportunity is. But for salespeople that have the time and have the bandwidth and are really passionate about what it is that you're doing, or maybe have, it's kind of the same as the partnership program. So I assume that it can kind of fold into that. But should salespeople that are listening that are passionate about this, think about, hey, there might be an opportunity for me to collaborate with you guys as well?
Absolutely. And by the way, I should mention that this applies for tech companies as well, who are selling to the nonprofit world, right? Tech resellers and what have you. As far as the sales folks and marketing folks are concerned, we are a tiny company. We're relatively a small startup. We've just been around for a year, actually. So our platform has been for a year, and our company is about 3 years old. Quantibly is currently operational in 47 countries. That means you have actually opportunity to sell anywhere. Right now we have commission based, and we give commission up to 20%, and through the entire contract life cycle. So it's not just a one-time payment. As the upselling continues, you continue to get paid through the entire contract life cycle. So we definitely encourage sales folks to come forward. The world is your portfolio. Wherever you can sell, we are all for it.
That's excellent. And that brings us perfectly into the last question, which is, I kind of want to talk about the story of Quantibly. Why this thing? I know you just mentioned, the product as it stands has been around for a year, but the incorporated company or the corporation has been around for 3 years. So was there a pivot in there? What happened that led you to this problem 3 years ago? And how did it change to what it's become for the last year?
Sure thing. It kind of starts with my background and my co-founder's background. All of us, we have worked in GovTech, EdTech, Health Tech, and all the other techs in the world. And at different point of time, we came in contact with the not-for-profit world, right? Back in the days, I was consulting with Microsoft and Oracle and IBM's and helping them understand what does it mean by technology intervention and impact. And that led to some of our initial work in 2013. And we looked at the world and we said, okay, there are CRMs and ERPs and spreadsheets, but none of them are actually, that's data in, data out, kind of garbage in, garbage out way. And none of them are actually helping what it is supposed to do. which is, what is my impact? What exactly am I generating with my effort, money, and what have you? So we needed to kind of take a look at something that could work from New York to Indonesia to Burkina Faso. We wanted to create a global platform that's not meant for New York and California. We wanted to create a platform that could be used by the largest NGO as well as the smallest NGO. By the way, we just signed up BRAC, the largest NGO in the world, last week.
Congratulations.
Looking forward to, thank you. We're looking forward to working with them, and they have like 25, 30,000 people. So in 2013, we started our proof of concept, and between 2013 and 2020, this is when we tested our idea with thousands of organizations around the world before we could write the code. And then the pandemic happened. 2 weeks before the pandemic lockdown started, we actually incorporated the company and said, now it's time to get to business. We have enough product market fit and data. And that's exactly what happened. Through the pandemic, nonprofits and NGOs were providing services, food security, finance, health, name it. And it became absolutely important for us to build a platform in that space, because without data, we cannot forecast what's coming down the pipe, period. There is no way to forecast if there is a 40% probability of a health epidemic in so-and-so, in the global south, for example, or an employment crisis in some of the emerging cities, if you will. Quantibly is able to kind of collect and forecast that information with, for decision makers, stakeholders, public policy. We are introducing an AI to actually forecast impact everywhere and say there's a probability of this happening and that happening, kind of like the Minority Report, but for impact. If you're old enough to remember Minority Report, that's a good movie. So yeah, that's what we're kind of going for.
I think that's a great stopping point for us, and I do want to close out here, but I do want to throw this back to you. You've made me think of this. I think a lot of other podcasts end with, what is your impact that you want to make on a personal level? And I would love to hear that from you. When Quantibly is maybe it sells for $1 trillion, who knows what's going to be the future of Quantibly, but when you guys are at whatever your end state is, that's the dream for you. What is the impact that you want to have as a human being with this company?
So we always kind of talk about it. As a company, we want to be the gold standard for evidence-based impact data. We are fundamentally a data and a framework company, as I mentioned. As far as personal impact is concerned, I think me and my co-founders, that we all align on this, is that what are we leaving behind? Not just wealth and cars and fancy stuff. Have I been able to directly or indirectly impact people's lives? And that is stronger, that is more valuable to all of us than anything else. Knowing that my platform helped thousands of refugees in Kukuma refugee camp in Kenya, knowing that our platform is helping thousands of students in Southeast Asia, and because the NGOs are managing their development and learning, that is more powerful to me than whatever billions or millions of dollars it can generally produce. And I think we will all want to walk away at that point knowing that at least we have done something, at least we have triggered the ripple effect of change.
Wow. My gosh, this is a good endpoint for us, but it's been absolutely a pleasure to talk to you. You're just such a beautiful soul. And I could ask you so many more questions, but I wish more people in our podcast that are listening could just experience the genuineness of who you are and what you guys are working after. You just get it. And when I say get it, it's not many people that I meet understand that the money is just the money, but there's this greater impact and responsibility that we have to each other as human beings. And what an honor to sit on the other side of the camera and get to speak with you today. But where can our listeners and our viewers, where can they find you? Where can they find Quantibly if they want to learn more?
First of all, thank you so much, Perry. You're very kind. I appreciate it. And visitors can go to quantibly.com or connect with me on LinkedIn. Anytime. My LinkedIn is open. If you want to learn more, have a chat with me, have a drink with me, whichever works. I'm all for it. Doesn't matter where you are. I work almost 24/7 cycle. So just reach out.
Awesome. Cyrus, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Perry. Lovely talking to you.